I've been a film fan almost all of my life, and have always been drawn to its magical visual medium that whisked me away on adventures I'd never dreamed of. As a youngster, it's all about the entertainment, but it wasn't until I got older that I realized why I loved certain movies and why certain pieces of art resonated with me. I also was raised to try and enjoy literature, and although there were books I read in my youth, it was just never my cup of tea. Novels were never a means of storytelling that I could personally get into for as long as I could remember. I was always attracted to visuals. I am a visual and hands-on learner, and always have been. And don't even get me started with the overwhelming amount of reading required for all of my schooling being textbooks or classic literature I found forgetful. I think school can be an easy scapegoat because, let's face it, my high school never allowed students free rein during summer reading, and instead forced novels upon students that became a dread for people like me. But on top of that, it was just a means of how I was born and what means of learning subjects would appeal to me. All that said, I can understand why literature can appeal to a lot of readers for how they want to experience stories. For instance, let's take the Harry Potter series. Now these are some of my favorite movies of all time, and oddly enough, made me fall more in love with movies as a kid. But what means of storytelling do most Harry Potter fans usually gravitate towards when they want to experience the wizarding world and all of the plot intricacies and characters involved? It's usually the books. When I was young, I did my best to read the first 3 books, and while I might have liked them at the time, the movies were always my jam. Granted, there are certainly aspects of the book that were never explored in the movies, and for fans of the book, I can see why it'd be frustrating to not see the parts they enjoyed reading not up on screen. Yet I think some should realize that since there's so much that a film can do, that since a book is so rich and layered with a lot of character depth and plot detail and can allow a reader's imagination to soar, a movie has limits. It's supposed to fit within a specific runtime and still have the ability through great direction, performances, cinematography, editing, production design, costuming, music, and sound design to tell that same story from the book in its own effective way. One might say, well, you know, the book is better because it gives you more and the movie left scenes out. Well, no crap. It's a movie. Of course, both mediums are different, but I think people tend to forget that you can enjoy certain stories in their own mediums, and if one medium offers you more, then that's cool. If you like the book better, cool. But there's a reason a movie that's adapting a book can be great in its own right, by just telling that story well cinematically. What made me a fan of Harry Potter was seeing the movies. In fact, I owe it to the film series for getting me more into live-action filmmaking, as well as the fantasy genre, since I only had a fascination with animation as a child. It wasn't until I sat down to watch Chamber of Secrets in full that I was whisked away on an incredible journey. And from then on, I've been a fan of the Harry Potter film series. And the reason why I still love this franchise to this day was because everyone involved in the making of those films took what J.K. Rowling wrote and made it work in its own inventive and memorable way. I was able to enjoy them as movies, and even though the books can give you more since there's a lot to them, that doesn't support the fact that the movie's bad because it can't incorporate as much. They still work as movies because they're just great movies regardless if they're adaptations or not. Whenever I try to read books, and maybe others can relate, I often find it hard to stay on track and perhaps go over it very slowly. Otherwise, if I try to breeze through paragraphs, I won't even remember what I read. I'm just reading words and not letting sentences sink in.
The sacred Jedi texts! Oh, read them, have you? Well, page turners, they were not.
Someone who's a visual, hands-on learner needs that visual image that'll allow them to stay focused. Movies are able to give me that focus because of the visual elements that can bring me into a scene, like seeing actors perform, production design, special effects, costuming, makeup, and more. And to go along with that, there are more auditory elements that can immerse viewers into the experience. For example, how actors can convey and dictate dialogue, and the way music and sound effects are incorporated. Movies are able to put you in that environment because of those aspects. Books can become more of a challenge because readers have to put in the work of imagining all those elements. But what's so awesome about films and shows is that the viewer can be affected by the vision of what the director presented. And while one is experiencing a film or show, one is able to escape reality, if you will, because of how the creators can enrapture a viewer with all those incredible artistic elements. But according to some people, watching something can be a lazy way of experiencing a story, since when you're reading, you're thinking about things and allowing your imagination to grow. And while I agree books can do that over movies, it's not until after you see the movie or TV show that you start to think about things that can allow you to assess and analyze the movie in a healthy way, whether it was the creative aspects, the filmmaking, acting, and so forth. Or maybe the film had really great thematics. There are just so many things in good, if not great movies that can keep the conversation going. Well, this person doesn't seem to agree.
Movies are designed so that every person in America, everyone, every stupid person will like them. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. They do make movies for different demographics. Dumb men, dumb women, dumb teenagers, dumb old people.
Yeah, I think this fella could use a viewing of 2001: A Space Odyssey or Inception, because those movies are for dumb people, right?
Now, in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening. That allows us to get right in the middle of that process.
How?
By taking over the creating part.
It stinks!
Directors and writers put blood, sweat, and tears in creating art, not merely casual entertainment to earn a quick buck. I mean, listen to the passionate interviews from all-star directors like Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan.
So, I guess you could use the hairpin shape to represent the bulk of the film, with the black and white, with the color meeting in the last reel, the end of the film being sort of there-ish after it turns into color and kind of leads us into the beginning of that preceding scene.
Steven Spielberg.
And so I do a lot of looking back and a lot of, understanding what makes a good story. The way Hollywood used to tell good stories, starting with silent movies, when there were just a few subtitles to help you from time to time, where the visual arts were explosive and very direct and really led you to an emotional reaction and a huge climactic ending without any words at all. And then how when films first found their voice, they all sounded like plays until Howard Hawks decided to make everybody talk faster and throw in a couple of fantastic graphic visuals and start to use composition.
Martin Scorsese. I mean, the list goes on and on. I love it when movies can resonate with me and make me think differently from an artistic perspective. Even when I watch a bad movie, I think about what I would have done differently compared to the movie's weaker elements. If I only watched films for just entertainment and to turn my brain off, I wouldn't be the person I am today, because I think about every movie I've seen, good or bad. But the question is it inevitable for visual learners like me to not be able to enjoy literature since it can be a chore? Not necessarily. There are a couple of techniques out there for non-readers who can enjoy literature in their own way. Number 1. I have a hard time focusing on this technique since I need a visual image, but audiobooks are definitely the way to go if you'd rather listen than try to trudge through words on paper. Audiobooks for me kinda go like this. You know when someone talks at you for a really, really long time, and you just be nice and try to listen to them even if your mind drifts off? That's kinda what audiobooks are for me. But hey, you might hate reading and prefer it this way. Unless it's music or podcast discussions, audiobooks just aren't for me. I feel I can consume literature better in audiobook form, but I'd rather see than completely listen to something. The other means of literature that's especially perfect for visual learners are comic books. Comic books are basically like watching movies, only you control the story as you're reading it. Basically like watching a foreign film, you're reading the movie. Comics can have such incredible artwork, but also literature included with it that can keep you engaged with the story and what characters are thinking. Elements that may not be as suited for film and TV. You're able to engage with the story not only by looking at beautiful imagery, but by also reading it. And the reading portions can be accessible, not paragraph after paragraph. Because of that, I found it to be the perfect means of literature for me. So in all this, I'm not necessarily trying to prove that movies are better than books. I only want people to understand why someone like me is able to gravitate towards certain means of storytelling. If you like books better, cool. Movies better, cool. Comics, video games, audiobooks, whatever it is. And for me, it's at a theater near you, on a couch, or in bed rereading Watchmen. So be sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more. I plan on uploading more content like this. And catch my podcast Fire When Ready with new episodes out bi-weekly. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.